Hello, hello. All right, today we're going to chat about. I love this topic because it's actually the good mood stuff that we need after all the difficulties of struggling with disordered eating. These are the signs to look out for if you're on the journey that are a clear indicator that you are guaranteed to break through, provided that you continue to do the work. These are the little counterintuitive green flags that I look for as a coach that are telling me in no uncertain terms that the person that I'm speaking to, the person that I'm working with, is on their way. I get so excited when I see them, and I really try and pause long enough and acknowledge them so that the client can see as well what a good indicator there is and how different it is to previous behavior. Changing our relationship with food is complicated. It's not like being a coach who works with somebody to try and get to 7 figures. There is a clear goal there. It's like, I want to earn 10K a month. I want to earn 100K a month. I want to earn $1 million a month. All right, we've got some clear targets. And when we get there, we know with no uncertainty that we are there. However, when we're working with somebody who's changing the relationship with food, it's a lot more messy. It's a lot more murky. The indicators aren't as clear. Because as I've said before, and if you haven't heard me say this before, or you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Helen Bennett. I am a coach who helps people stop losing control with food, who stops people from compulsively overeating, including binge eating and bulimia. I do work with that too, because it's all same principles apply. A little bit easier if you're not struggling with an eating disorder, but it's same, right? It's just more time in the saddle, maybe a little bit more challenge for those who are struggling with an eating disorder. But the principles remain identical because really the root cause is almost always identical. So I help people break free of those compulsions. And when I mean free, to the point at which they just don't have those insane urges that are so hard to ignore. And if you're struggling with this, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the kind of urge, the desire that's so intense that anybody who's not struggled with this really wouldn't be able to understand, right? When I walk into the shop, there is no massive, intense urge for me to shoplift. But I imagine that a compulsive shoplifter gets the same urge to steal something from the shops as I used to get when I was around food. I just wanted to eat and eat and eat and never stop, right? So that's what I help people stop. But on the way to that place where they're no longer bombarded by obsession and compulsion with their food and their body and their weight and blah, 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 on the way, we've got to look for these little indicators, because getting to that place where you're living from a place where you're not getting urges to compulsively overeat, or you might overeat occasionally, as I do, or you might eat for emotion occasionally, as I do. But on the way there to where from where you are now, we've got to look for all these little wins, because if we don't, it's going to feel like a very long ride, and it's going to feel endlessly out of your reach, right? Because this work can take a while. It's messy, it's complicated, there's a lot of different factors. And actually, if you want to understand the basic framework, the formula, if you will, for breaking free and all the 4 core factors that we need to work on, you can go to a video in my channel. I'll link to it at the end of this video as soon as I can, which is called the Food Freedom Formula, where I really explain the 4 critical factors. And if you really want to go deep on that, there's another 5 days or so where the masterclass, which is about an hour and a half long, where I go deep into the exact structure that I teach people and that I work through with people, which includes those 4 components in the masterclass, which is in the description below. It's free for the next 5 days. It's fantastic. You're going to need 90 minutes, nice and quiet, with a pen and paper. Dive in. But on the way to really breaking these compulsions, which can take a long time, and doing all the work to change the narratives and the emotional coping, etc., on the way there, we want to look for signs and signals that you are making progress, which, if you just keep going, will mean an inevitable breaking free. So I want to give you those today, because either you're on the journey, you're going to be like, yeah, I've already got 3 out of 9 of those, or you're just starting and you're going to get excited, because this is what you can expect from the work that I do with you, right? Number 1, green flag, number 1 signal is that day when somebody says to me, I ate something, usually something that used to be a trigger food, something they felt very compulsive around. They stayed present with it, and they noticed they didn't enjoy it as much as they used to. They thought it was going to be incredible, but when they actually ate it, not only did they not lose control, but they actually didn't even want to keep going because something about that food that they thought was so fearful and so scary, because in the past that had led to binge, was actually kind of meh. That is such a good sign when that first happens, because you don't even need to be restricted with those foods. Once you've got it, that that food is no longer enjoyable, that you don't actually like the taste, there is no part of you that wants to have more of it. And the more you taste that food and get that reminder that you don't actually like it, the easier it is to just not want it. You don't even try. It's not something you're trying to avoid. You simply have no craving for something you don't like the taste of. And that's the first little indicator. I love it when a client spots that, particularly if it's a food that they were absolutely convinced they would never be able to stop eating once they started, let alone just have no craving or desire for. That's indicator number one. Number two, it's when a client just tells me, because what we do when I work with somebody is just to get the process moving. We start with a series of what I call tummy check-ins, which they'll do during the day. And where basically they're checking in, reconnecting with their body and hearing hunger again. And they will report back to me that they just completely forgot to even think about food, to think about their tummy. Maybe their alarm for the tummy check-in went off and they were meaning to do it, but they just went straight past it, didn't think about it again for the next 3 or 4 hours. Now, this is somebody who in the past, and you might relate to this, couldn't go 5 minutes without thinking about food, who spends 10%, 10% if they're really lucky, up to 80% of their day thinking and worrying about what the next meal's going to be. So when they can report to me that they've just had a day where they completely forgot to even think about food, that's a good sign, right? That's when you know the work is working, because that's the very thing we're trying to reclaim is our life and our focus and our energy and attention, which has been diverted so much and hijacked by thoughts of food and calories and body weight and macros, blah, blah, blah. What should I eat? When should I eat? How much? What will they think? Into, oh, I was just in such a good place, and I was so satisfied, my body wasn't craving anything, that I didn't even occur to me to eat. Isn't that incredible? Like, if you told me that I'd be able to say that, I would have said there's no way on God's green earth I could ever do such a thing as forget to eat. I remember my mum telling me that she used to forget to eat, and I actually thought that is impossible because I was so all consumed with the thoughts of food. I think you're going to relate to that one. The third green flag, I love this one. It's when a client tells me a story about something that's happened. Maybe they were out for dinner or they were speaking to a loved one or whatever the case may be. And they feel this kind of inner rage. I call it the inner lioness who starts to roar. Because all these years, without knowing it, people have told them what to do. They've been should on. You should do this. You should do that. You should eat blah, blah. You should blah. Or they've been so desperate for people to like them that they've actually denied, without realizing, and I've done this, right? Denied their own wants and needs in service of being liked and accepted. It's called people pleasing by another name. But as we do this work and they start to reconnect with their needs, their physiological needs, their mental needs, their spiritual needs, they start to realize how much they've been handing them over to other people. And then what happens is they've realized how they haven't been able to set boundaries. That's something we work on in the work that I do. And they haven't been able to say no. And they haven't been able to speak up for themselves. And because they haven't had the tools and the skill, because it's something you learn to do, they've just pushed it all down, usually with food. Just suppress, 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 suppress. But when they realize I have a right to feel this way, or I have a right to rest, or I have a right to whatever, choose what I want, or choose not to eat because I'm not hungry. And then they feel society pushing into that need that they have. A little lioness begins to roar, and a little lioness inside says, not anymore, Buster, not anymore. And it's going to look like anger, frustration. It's not going to feel good necessarily, but as a coach, I get excited because that roar, that boundary that was saying, no, you will not tell me what to do. I'm a human and I have needs and I have rights and I deserve respect. That lioness was absent or had been pushed and suppressed so far down she didn't even know she existed. And as that lioness comes up, We've got to train her and teach her how to be strong, confident, bold, and know how to put a boundary down, know how to say, not anymore. And also know when to just let it go, because it's not really an issue. It's no problem. Let them think what they think. There's a bit of both that's required. But first, we've got to hear that voice. It's a voice that says, enough. I'm tired of being stomped over. And sometimes it's a voice that's tired of being abused by her own inner voice. Sometimes it's the real powerful inner woman that she was meant to be. This is going to sound woo, but just roll with me. Or man, who's actually acknowledging that she wanted certain things all along and was denying herself and criticizing herself and pushing herself down with her own abusive thoughts, which, by the way, she did not create on her own. She learned them. That's all part of the work that we do. But when I start to see that real bold inner lioness starting to roar inside somebody, it may feel uncomfortable and she may not know what to do with it yet. And we can train that. But it is such a good sign, because the inner self that has been denying itself all its wants and needs for so long, including its needs for food when it was hungry, is starting to say, enough. I will not be abused. I will not be pushed down. I will not be shamed. I would not be made to feel guilty for what I need as a human being. It's exciting. It's really exciting. That's a little bit more tricky to spot. That's why I love being a coach. I get to do that with somebody and really show them what it's all about. And they get excited too. And then we have to do the work of, right, the voice is there, starting to defend you now. That's awesome. Now what? But it's a good sign. It's a green flag. Here's another counterintuitive sign that somebody's really starting to change in a really positive direction. It has nothing to do with food, but it's one of the main reasons people struggle in the evenings. It's exhaustion and rest, right? And what happens, this is the signal I look out for, is when I catch them prioritizing their rest, their downtime, without feeling guilty, without feeling ashamed, without having to make excuses, without feeling lazy. And this is when I really know it's working. Because when I work with rest is best. If we are well rested, everything else gets easier. All the work that I do with you will be made easier, and it will wire itself in faster if you are well rested. If you're exhausted, we can do the work. It's good, but it's better if you're well rested. And so there's weirdly nothing better than when I get a message from a client in the morning. Maybe she's got an early morning session and she says, Helen, is there any chance we could reschedule? I'm absolutely shattered and I think I need to rest for the next hour instead of jump onto that call. I am thrilled, because she's so strong in her understanding now of her need for rest and recovery and downtime that she's willing to even upset me. In theory, although I'm not upset, I get excited. She's willing to stand up for herself enough to say, can I ask for what I really need? She doesn't make excuses. She doesn't have to lie. She doesn't make a reason why she can't make it. She just says the truth of it. I'm exhausted. I could do with some rest. Would it be possible for us to try and find another time? It's powerful. Really, really powerful. So exciting. Because when we're well rested, we're way less likely to feel emotional. We're way more likely to be able to get through any urges. We're way more likely to think logically, see the wood for the trees, channel and learn how to use or how to manage all these uncomfortable emotions and begin to wire all that in. When we're exhausted, it's very hard to do it. I did a whole video about that. I will put that link as well at the end of this video as soon as I can, about the dangers. Like the biggest danger zone is being absolutely exhausted. So rest is best. And when a client's prioritizing that, I get so excited. Like also another one, asking for time off at work, prioritizing their holiday time, putting down their phones, putting up emails to say I'm not available. These are the kind of things that just make me so happy as a coach, because I know, right, they're getting it, they're on their way. The next one is when somebody reports back to me, I didn't really enjoy that binge. So they might have found themselves overeating and just noticed that no part of it was enjoyable for them. When they say, I just had no enjoyment in that binge, that's when I know that the role it was playing, pleasure and escape and soothing and numbing, is wearing thin, because it wasn't necessary. It just became something they didn't want to do. You can see, it seems so obvious. I think anybody listening to this from the outside would be like, oh, duh. But if you've not struggled with compulsive eating, binge eating, bulimia, or anything like that, literally wouldn't understand. But for somebody who's in it, and I guess if you are watching this, then you get it, they will be like, yep. It must be almost unfathomable to be able to be consciously aware of what's going on while you're in the process of overeating, let alone acknowledging and realizing you don't want to do it. And then here's the next signal, is when somebody pulls out mid-binge, which in the past they would never been able to do. So they're starting to compulsively overeat. They're moving into that cycle. They've already started it. They're sort of watching it all. And then somehow find the power of will to stop halfway. And all the mental turnarounds they've had to do to the dopamine at this point is firing off, expecting more, expecting the food to keep coming, pulling, come on, let's go do it, let's go do it, let's go do it. And they fight that physiological urge that's kicking off, begging for the pleasure of the experience, or for the numbing, or the escaping, or the soothing, or the stress relief. And midway through, they're able to find the power to stop and walk away, and then deal with all that heightened energy and wait for it to calm down. That's an exciting sign. I actually had somebody the other day saying, it was a partial binge. Is that a thing? And I'm like, it absolutely is. And it's a really good sign, because there was no such thing as partial binges in the past. And now it's just happened. Awesome. I'm using the word binge a lot. That may not resonate for you. That's fine. You can call it overeating or snackcidents or compulsion or whatever you want to call it. Whatever you call it, it's that same. It's the energy of eating that has got nothing to do with hunger, and it's connected to all sorts of other things, right? The next one, I love this one. When somebody tells me that they had takeaways, or they had a big, beautiful meal, the kind of thing they would have just kept going on. And they package it away and they put it in the fridge, or they put it in the freezer. First of all, that alone is a skill on its own if you're not used to doing that. If you're used to just kind of finishing it all off. Or they've had a big meal and then they're able to take some of it and put it away. That can be, I remember that would have been impossible for me, right? And then those takeaways, or those the leftovers, stay in the fridge and they forget about them, or they just don't have a craving for them. Boom! Like, that's so cool. I would never have been able to have pizza in a fridge for more than a few hours, let alone a few days. So when somebody says to me, Helen, I had some pizza on the weekend, or we went to have a takeaway, we got Thai, and I had a bit and I stopped and I packaged the rest away, and then I kind of forgot it was there, or the next day I didn't even really feel like it. Now we're on the path to them starting to feel that they can have anything in the house and not feel afraid that they will lose control. Now they're starting to show their brain all the evidence it needs that it's capable of having foods that they felt completely compulsive around, completely out of control with, not only in the house, but there'd be no desire, or that they'd forget. Now that takes a few goes. And the minute you think about it, it's like the purple elephant. Now you're thinking about it again, and maybe the hunger kicks off, or the binge urge kicks off. But ultimately, to be able to start to feel you can have bread and pasta and leftover takeaways and chocolates and all of those things that used to be so scary in the house, in your area, peanut butter, that's another favorite, and it not cause you to just keep going, or to have to get rid of it because you just can't bear the constant having to navigate it. Power, big green flag, very, very exciting stuff. So it might sound small, and even when they tell me, they often think it sounds a bit silly. When a client says to me, this may sound silly, but I always know it's not silly at all. I get it. It's the exciting stuff. It's actually where all the little wins are happening, right? What's the next one? Oh God, I love this one. When somebody says to me, without me pushing at all, I just couldn't really be bothered to weigh myself every day, or I just stopped calorie counting because it got boring. Boom. That's when I get so excited. That's when I'm thinking, yep. Because why would you need to weigh yourself every day? Or why would you need to calorie count? Once you've had so much evidence and trust that you can be around these foods, that you're not binging anymore. And for the most part, your body hasn't just gone crazy and made you eat nonstop until you ballooned out of control and pop, right? Once you start getting the evidence through lots of work and skill, etc., that you can be trusted and your body can be trusted, and that it's not trying to turn you into the Michelin woman. Once you get that information, the weighing becomes boring. Nothing changes, or the calorie counting becomes boring. And anyway, weighing's an interesting one, because for some people, the outcome of the work we do together was weight loss. It's usually slow. It's usually sort of plateaus, But ultimately, what does it matter? When your relationship with food is so much better, and you don't need a scale to tell you if you're starting to lose weight. You will begin to feel it, right? You'll begin to feel what's changed. You don't need a scale to confirm what you already know. When somebody's weighing themselves daily, as I used to, if not more than once a day, it's more out of fear or lack of trust. But when that trust is built, it's very natural for that person to begin to just want to stop doing it. Because either it just provides feedback that's conflicts with what they can feel internally and makes them feel bad, or they can feel the power and the compulsion of wanting to get that number to go in a certain direction, whether it's calories or weight, right? So I love it when people are getting the feedback or they've done enough of this work that they naturally choose to stop, because either they just don't like the way it makes them feel, or nothing's really changing. The way they eat is working. The calories are confirming it. It's confirmed it for 3 or 4 months now. I don't need to keep counting. It's just a waste of time, right? That's exciting. And it's so lovely when it's no nudge from me. It's just something they've decided to do from their own internal desire. And then the last one, and this really is probably the biggest one. This is really when you know you've got it. It's when something very big kicks off emotionally. A big fight with a family member, parent, something like that, a loved one. Usually around that kind of thing, something very charged, something that in the past would have guaranteed a straight to the fridge to get rid of those feelings with food. When that experience happens and a client realizes later that day, or maybe the following day, or maybe only when they speak to me, that they had no desire to eat in response, it's kind of like, okay, we're done. You don't really need me anymore. Like, obviously, I'd want to go through a few more cycles of that and make sure it's really wired in. But when there's no automatic response to the trigger, and the biggest trigger, the trigger that probably got them in trouble in the first place, the feeling not enough, feeling unlovable, feeling rejection, that's when, and there's no response to go and run for food or any other numbing mechanism. They're willing to sit with all of the discomfort of that. And maybe they've even got the tools at that point to really navigate that, diffuse the situation, bring themselves back to a nice calm space where they feel deserving and lovable and enough. It's kind of like, all right, I got nothing else for you. Now, I mean, actually on that note, what I do often do is I do have clients who work with me long after those urges are really a thing of the past, in order to just have somebody to talk to, because they realize how valuable it is. And that's more the life coaching side, which I love. Now we get to do all the better quality problems. We get to chat about relationships and work and what's on their mind. And there's just like, it's this constant maintenance of just clearing the stuff out of our minds, preventing it from becoming troublesome again. But really, at the point when somebody's able to navigate that really uncomfortable, powerful emotion, where something very challenging happens, and navigate through that and get to the other side without needing or thinking about wanting to eat as an escape, that's really when we know. That's the biggest green flag one can possibly have. So these are all the things that if you're on this journey and you're just beginning, that you get to look forward to. And these are the things that some of them that if you're already on the journey, you might have gone, yep. Oh, I've still got those. Great. Just means the work's still coming. But once you start to see those signals, you know, all righty, Helen said this was a signal I was on the right path, which is good. Now I've just got to keep on doing the work, keep on trucking. That's my signals, my signs, my green flags to let you know that you are well on your way to having a really free relationship with your food, your body, your weight. If you'd like to learn more, check the links in the description. You can book a free call with me. Let's chat about the program, how it works. And other than that, I just want you to have a lovely day further, and I'll see you, as always, on Wednesday.